Good morning and welcome to Conscious Crypto. This is one of our scenario calls, which is all about interviewing the top experts in the industry on different scenarios that can affect the price action. We all know how to trade patterns, but what are the broader scale things going on in the market that might affect whether those patterns break up or break down or just don't behave as they should? I'm Teresa de Grosbois. I'm joined here with my partner in Conscious Crypto, Nicola Grace. Good morning, Nicola.
Hi, good morning.
And we're super excited to have here this morning one of our mentors, Jeroen Van Lange. And just like everyone in this industry, you only get better as a trader if you choose amazing mentors to help you get better and learn to think about trading in different ways. Trading is 20% technical skills, 80% mindset and strategy, and sticking to your strategy like a robot. So we're very thrilled and privileged to have one of our mentors here, Jeroen Van Lange, who is an exquisite trader. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Jeroen.
Awesome. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah. So, Nicola.
Yes, Jeroen is the blockchain today. Go to his YouTube channel and subscribe to it. That would be totally awesome. He gives live streams, updated technical analysis. We chose him as our mentor because of some very interesting ideas he has about trading and the scenarios, so stay tuned, you're going to love it. We would love for you, if you like this concept of conscious crypto and you want to have a little bit of a broader understanding of trading, to subscribe to our channel, hit the bell and click all so that you get notified when we do live streams, interviews or training videos. And of course, we would love your comments and we'd love for you to let us know that you've subscribed, and we will do our best to reply to you. That being said, take it away, Teresa.
Beautiful. So, Jeroen, I think you know my history. You know, I was into Forex trading many, many years ago, came back to trading, and it was kind of like I learned to trade when we were still horse and buggy, and somewhere in between they invented the Lamborghini. So it was a really great experience for me to learn, boy, new traders must be just overwhelmed at trying to figure out these tools, you know, how to use the different trading platforms. Things have just advanced so much in the last several years. So I'm going to actually ask you some overarching strategy questions, as well as some questions that might help our newer listeners or viewers on our channel. So let's start with some high-level stuff. When you first started trading, Jeroen, how long did it take you to go from $1,000 to $10,000, let's say? How long did it take you to get off the ground?
Well, that is a funny question, because I've started with crypto in the 2016-2017 bull run. I actually was already involved with Bitcoin in 2015, reading a little bit about it, looking at the charts, very interested, but not convinced yet to really invest. That really came in 2016 to 17. And yeah, back then it was actually super easy to make money. So if you would have a $1,000, then in a couple of weeks, it was easy to make of that 1,000, $10,000, even though if you were not that good in trading itself. Back then, I was not a good technical analyst. I learned everything starting from 2016. So back then I was investing on feeling, which a lot of people were doing in the bull market. When a project feels right, or you feel the hype momentum boiling up in the background, you take the risk and you invest in a certain project. Back then we had ICOs. A lot of ICOs were launching, and if you could enter the ICO sale, you almost was secured for profits, because most of the time, even though you wanted to enter a ICO, you couldn't, because it was already full when they had the pre-launch. So once the ICO was hitting the exchange, afterwards you see a huge dump in the price, but before that you saw the price going up. So it was really easy when I was starting out to make money with crypto. When the bear market came, starting in the beginning of 2018, that was a different story, of course. And almost nobody who jumped into 16 to 17 was really prepared for such a market after experiencing such a strong bull market. That's as well the worry I have with the newly investors coming into the space right now this year.
Yeah, it's going to be a mental shift going from bull market to bear market. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, it took like a couple of weeks to turn 1,000 into 10,000. Maybe at least a couple of months, 2 months, I would say.
Wow, nice. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And, so that's for anyone who's newer to crypto trading, it is a bit Wild West. So you got to be prepared for that, right? This is an unregulated industry. That's the very nature of crypto, right? We are decentralized, deregulated. So sometimes crazy things happen in the world of crypto, but it's also an opportunity to make a lot of money, which is, it's encouraging to see you went from not understanding crypto trading at all to being one of the most well-respected analysts in the industry in the space of 4 to 5 years. So that's, really cool to see, Jeroen, and very encouraging for those of us who are newer to the crypto space as traders. So let's talk strategy. What's your favorite strategy overall?
So the strategy for me really depends on the market conditions. So normally when we are in a bear market, the most profitable strategy is trading with leverage and just trading contracts, Bitcoin against US dollar. We have already always some exceptions in altcoins who are outperforming Bitcoin, even when Bitcoin is not performing that well, like in a bear market. But yeah, in generally, you want to trade Bitcoin and with a low leverage, so to lower your risk, you want to trade like that in a bear market. However, when we are in a bull market, which we are in right now, then you want to have a look at different opportunities to increase your Bitcoin holdings with swing trading altcoins. So right now, when market conditions are in the favor of the trader, I definitely would favor swing trading altcoins as one of the most profitable and safest strategies in a bull market, in the market we are in right now.
Jeroen, I just want to reference something amazing that you just said. You said in a bear market, you would do lower leverage, and in a bull market, you would do higher leverage. So talk a little bit more about that. And also, do you short and when we have a little bit of a bear run within an overarching bull market?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. So I wouldn't recommend to use a higher leverage in a bull market or in a bear market. I would always recommend to use the amount of leverage that is fitting your risk profile, your risk management, which in my trading profile would be a low leverage. And I consider a low leverage, let's say a 3 to 6, 7x. I'm personally almost never using a 20x leverage. Sometimes I did it in the past, and there will definitely be situations where I will use it, but it's not not a standard like I would do it quite often. Normally, I would have a leverage from 3 to 6, 3 to 7x. So I think in the bull market, I think more money is to be made with swing trading altcoins, because if you want to increase your Bitcoin holdings, you can do that with leverage as well, but you carry actually quite a risk with leverage, and there are more things you need to consider, like having a funding rate. If you use the spot trade and you are spot trading altcoins, swing trading them, then you can actually can make quite some good profits with a low risk. So that's why I would favor such a strategy.
So Jeroen, do you have a defined strategy by which you choose how much leverage you use? Do you have certain conditions that dictate how much leverage you're willing to use on a trade?
Good question. That would really depend on the certain situation. So that would, like normally when I'm seeing an opportunity in the markets, I always have a look at the general position of the markets. Which signs that I'm seeing and which checklists I can confirm which are in my favor. So when I'm seeing that, for example, like I see a lot of check marks are in my favor. So we are seeing, let's say we are seeing a inverse head and shoulders pattern, which is a reversal pattern, right? We are seeing that after a nice retracement of the price, which increases the likelihood that we are actually seeing a bottom and that we might be reversing. That could be a moment when we break the neckline that I could set a higher leverage, because you have you can be with more confidence in a certain trade than when you would trade a little bit more choppy price action, or more price action in the shorter term time frame, or price action in the longer term time frame. So it would really depend on every certain situation. Yeah.
Okay, so let's, oh, sorry, go ahead, Nicola.
Over the weekend, Teresa and I had a really spirited conversation about what a breakout actually is. So I've been doing extra research, like what is a breakout? Because some will say, if you're going to trade the breakout, you make sure that we go above the pattern, we come back and test resistance as support, and then we go above the original breakout. And others are saying, no, wait for a full 4-hour candle that clears the breakout. So what are the rules that you go by in breakouts?
So that is a good question, and there's a lot of uncertainty with traders in this field. You know, everybody is using different confirmations, but of course the main rule is the higher the confirmation, like the higher the time frame. Let's say a daily breakout, a daily close above or below a certain level is a higher confirmation. But sometimes we don't see the price coming back down again on a daily time frame, right? So that is the problem. So I always tell people, like, sometimes you want to take an extra risk and you want to enter a position at the breakout before waiting that it goes back until it's retesting. On the other hand, when it's coming back to retest, you get an extra confirmation, because when former resistance flips into support, you have an extra confirmation and you can enter the trade even with more confidence than you would have if you would enter from the breakout. The only risk that you have is that you might not enter the trade because we might not see the retest.
Okay, yeah, exactly. And then you end up chasing a running train, right?
That is not a good plan. So that is like it's like I think it's quite personal. It's also, again, depending on the situation as well. You know, in some breakouts, you see the price already like coming up towards the resistance, and when the price is coming up towards the resistance, you're already seeing let's say volume starting to increase, and which is coming along with a breakout in the RSI breaking the resistance. So we get a lot of signals that, okay, momentum is behind this move, price is going to break above, we are seeing increased amounts of volume, feels good, let's go in.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's fun having a bunch of traders as neighbors here in Vista Mundo. You know, I imagine your community you're starting in Valley is going to be similar, where it's like, you know, Bitcoin is just a topic of conversation at the dinner table.
It's starting. It's wow, really yes. Even when I'm like lately, when I'm just going to restaurants, have some food, or when I'm sitting at a public pool or something, I hear in my environment people talking about crypto, and it really reminds me actually of 2016, 2017, which is slightly alarming, because back then when we heard everybody talking about it, that it didn't took that long until we actually topped out. Might be a couple of months, you know, so who knows?
Good indicator. Actually, that's the scenario, right? Like when everybody starts talking about something, that actually might be a scenario we think about, where, okay, we might be within a few months of the end of the bull run here. That's, you know, good noticing, actually. So we should start tracking that one as a scenario.
I don't think we are close to the cycle top, though. I think Bitcoin will still go to way higher levels, but it might be sooner than later.
Yeah, really good noticing. Okay, so on these interviews, we talk about scenarios, right? We talk about the things that might be impacting the overarching price action. One of the things Nicola and I were both really fascinated about in your How to Become a Profitable Trader course that we both took when we were both getting back into crypto trading was you noticing about Mercury retrogrades. And that actually fascinated me. Wow, there's actually people out there that talk about astrology. I'm kind of on the woo-woo end. I'm just going to admit that. So I'm a big follower of astrology in general, but it never occurred to me that astrology might actually impact trading. And you were talking about how W.D. Gann first noted that astrology can have a big impact on trading. Talk about that for a minute.
Okay, so basically what I love to do next to trading is I love to read books. And I love to read books about ancient civilizations and Hermetic principles. And I'm a big believer that everything is about energy. We are about energy. We are transmitting energy. I think that is the driving forces of the world. If we have a look at the markets, then the markets are also a form of energy. When people are focusing on Bitcoin, energy is going to Bitcoin, liquidity is going to Bitcoin, right? So I think there are same principles involved as well, that it's mainly about energy. When we have a look at humans in general, then and we have a look at, for example, the stance of the planets, and I'm not talking that much about astrology itself. So, okay, what I do think is that if we have a look at the moon, for example, and if we have a look at the influence of the moon on our planet, then the moon has an influence on the behavior of the ocean. If we have a look at human beings, we are also made from a certain percent of water. So therefore, I think the moon can have an influence, even though it is a slight influence on the human energy as well. And therefore, it could be rhyming with what we are seeing in the markets. And after that, I was starting to think like, okay, what if this is true? What if it's possible that actually the stance of the planets could have an influence on the energy that's right here on Earth, and that the energy right here on Earth has an impact on the behavior, on the mass behavior of humans? Then eventually we would see that behavior as well in the markets, right? And William Delbert Gann, one of the most famous and most successful traders of all time, had a very high accuracy rate, and nobody knows exactly, except for William Delbert Gann, how he predicted the movement of the markets.
So let's talk about the specific effect that Mercury retrograde has on the price of Bitcoin and how it trades in the market. What have you noticed about Mercury retrograde?
So yeah, then afterwards, I've been studying William Delbert Gann for some time, and I've been reading some books from him as well, which are very difficult to understand. He's really somebody who's trying to hide his techniques. So you really have to dive deep to check what he's actually meaning, and then you cannot even be sure what he's actually trying to tell. But yeah, what I've been doing is I've been creating a indicator where I can plot certain times over on the chart. That is an indicator you also get in my cryptocurrency trading course. But what it basically does is it is plotting a certain time on the chart. And right here we have the Mercury retrograde indicator. So let me overlay that on the chart. Can do that right here.
Do you want to share your screen?
Can you share your screen
for a minute, Jeroen?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
This is, I just want to reiterate that point about how the moon and planets can affect us. My mum was a surgical nurse, and she used to hate going in to late night surgery if there was a full moon, because there would always be lots of stabbings and fist fights in the city. And I grew up in Wellington City in New Zealand, and it was a dread, and it was a well-known thing that the moon totally affected their evening in the ER.
Yeah, my dad used to say that as a doctor too. There'd always be double the births on the night of full moon. So it clearly has impact on people, and people are what run the markets.
Well, everything's
exactly.
Consciousness, right? Everything's consciousness.
So yeah, what I basically did with this indicator, I've made certain cycles of certain planets, and one of them is the Mercury retrograding cycle. And I overlaid them right there on the chart, and I was just studying them, just checking what actually happens in the times of Mercury retrograding, and could there be any signal showing us that we might be seeing more selling pressure or more buying pressure in these times. And what I found was during the bear market right here in 2018, and further down here in 2019 as well, it was actually so remarkable, I couldn't ignore it. And I've been making some videos about it over on my YouTube channel as well. But right here, you can see that every time Mercury starts retrograding, which is this green box right here, you see that the price is experiencing selling pressure. So that was actually quite weird for me to see, because right here you see like one example. Okay, we have a second example, then we have the third example. The big drop right here in 2018 was as well in a retrograding period. Then after the rally we have seen right here, we also had a decrease in this retrograding period, this one too. So it's really difficult to believe that it's coincidence, although correlation is not directly causation. I'm totally aware of that fact, but I do think it is interesting. It is a very interesting correlation that we are seeing right here in the Bitcoin chart. So we have seen some different behavior. So in the bear market, 2018 to 19, we have seen that during Mercury retrograding periods, the price of Bitcoin experienced selling pressure. But if we have a look at the bull market, then we actually see the opposite. We are seeing that the price is accelerating during times of when we are seeing Mercury retrograding. So that is actually the opposite of what we are seeing to 18 to 19, that selling pressure in a bear market, buying pressure in a bull market.
That is so interesting, because Mercury going retrograde is the transformational concept of a time when there might be some clunkiness with technology or disruptions or time delays with communications. So we come into Mercury retrograde, and how that often affects our personal lives is it's a time for pulling back because everything out there is going a bit crazy. And so we do some inward reflection. But if we transpose that over to this chart and we go, well, in a bull run, we could be going up, and in a bear run, Mercury go retrograde means we could be doing a bit of a dump. How can we deal with that internally? Because here at Conscious Crypto, we're all about managing the emotions and trading consciously. So how can we use this? I mean, obviously, firstly, just be prepared that something might happen, right?
Yeah. So the thing is, like, the thing is that that's a really good question, though. Like, a lot of people would see this correlation and would think like, wow, I'm going to sell my asset at the start of the retrograde and going to buy after the retrograde is finished. Well, I personally don't think that is a good way to use this indicator, because it is never really good to rely based on solely one single indicator, which in this case would be the Mercury retrograde period. I think it can be something you can take in consideration. Like, okay, during these periods, we often see selling pressure. So it's not that I'm going to assume the price is going to dump within the time frames, but I'm going to be prepared. So you can, like, easily, like, let's say you have like a uptrending support right here, for example, you could say, like, okay, the moment we're turning forward, the moment that you think like, okay, the price is breaking a certain support, I'm expecting a reaction to the downside. This, in combination with a retrograding period of Mercury, might see something right here in the RSI as well. We have a nice uptrend in the RSI, which we broke out to the downside as well. So right now we have a lot of indications, right? We have a bearish divergence, yes. Okay, so right here we have like a uptrend in the RSI that has been broken. We have a uptrend in the price that has been broken. We have a bearish divergence at the end of this in the price, which is signaling us a potential trend reversal, right? So, and we have a Mercury retrograding period, which means that we could be seeing negative energy in the markets, or at least increased selling pressure due to historical correlation, right? So in this basket of indicators, I think it would make sense to include it. You know, I think that definitely would be a valid reason if you're trading. However, I wouldn't use it as a sole indicator.
Right. Yeah. So you'd maybe adjust your stop losses and most definitely set your alarms in TradingView, unless you're Teresa's next door neighbor.
You wake up anyway.
Sometimes our alarms are bang, 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 bang. Nicola, check your trades.
Oh, yeah.
Too funny. So that's a really interesting scenario within a scenario, that Mercury retrograde actually performs differently in a bull market than it does versus a bear market. And here I think here we're talking about the macro trend bull, macro trend bear, right? So we're talking bear or bull on the daily or the weekly time frame, not on the short-term time frame. Are there any other nuances around Mercury retrograde that you've discovered? One of the things I love to dive into, what are the exceptions and what was going on during the exceptions? Is there anything you've noticed with the exceptions at this time, Jeroen?
Yes, we had an exception in the bear market. That was the thing. We only had one exception. That's also why I think it's such remarkable. And you can say, so you can make the argument, yeah, but in a bear market, majority of the time price is going down. So wouldn't it make sense that every Mercury retrograde price would go down? And yes, that argument is a valid argument, would make sense. But if you have a look at these periods, then you see like it's almost at the start of the retrograde that the price starts to dump. That we see a top at approximately the start of the retrograding period. So that was just quite mind-blowing. I have to say, it's really difficult to explain this on a scientific level, right? It's very difficult to really give a clear explanation of what this actually means. But yeah, I do think it can bring a very interesting correlation with the chart. Right here we have an exception when the price actually moving sideways slightly to the upside in this retrograding period. That was in March 2019, right before we had this massive run up. So yeah, that was the only exception right there in this bear market.
Was there a Mercury goes retrograde in November? Because I remember in November I was watching a lot of YouTubers and they were saying, we're going to have a pump, we're going to have a pump. And I was expecting this pump. But then when I saw where we were astrologically, Jupiter and Saturn, I think, were conjunct or squared or something. Jupiter is the planet of expansion. So if we're going to get a bull run during a Jupiter run and Saturn's next to it, Saturn's restriction on finances, right? That wasn't going to happen. And everybody was expecting a pump. But it didn't happen until December, and it literally happened the day of Jupiter moving out of Saturn's influence. And I'm just wondering if other planets and what they're doing affects Mercury retrograde and enhances it in some way, or just gives us another scenario to consider.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like also when you study W.D. Gann's work, or I've read a lot of books from financial astronomy from different authors, and the thing is there's so much to include. So it's not only like, for example, Mercury has a cycle, Venus has a cycle, the moon has a cycle, you have conjunctions, you have planets that are opposites, you have certain degrees, you have certain zodiacs where planets could be in. And it all has an influence. So if you really want to be like on top of the game with the certain planets ruling energy on Earth, ruling energy in the markets, it is very difficult, I would say, to almost impossible to really get a 100% understanding of how this actually works, because it is super, super complicated. But it looks like when you study it and when you're reading books about it, it definitely looks like there is a huge influence. And there are a lot of bear markets in the S&P 500 in gold. They have been predicted by the stance of the planets already 20 years before they actually happened. Last bear market, the last drop we have seen in the S&P 500 was also years before predicted, only by stance of the planets, very, very precisely. And that's as well why I've posted on my website as well a blog post about the Shemitah cycle, which is a 7-year cycle, which is actually predicting a huge crash in the stock market this year, September. And I've been already saying that last year, so I thought, I'm going to write a nice blog post about it. I'm going to publish it. So in hindsight, I can show you guys, like, look, we published this in 2020 already, or like 290, I think it was 220, that in 2021, and I think by the month September, we are going to see a huge crash in the stock market. But like you said, it's a macro perspective indicator. Also, like, it's a 7-year cycle, so it can be a couple of months off. Of course, it's not. But yeah, who knows? I think September. Everybody who's interested, they can read that blog post over on my website, the Shemitah cycle, and it has been super, super accurate in predicting previous bear markets or stock market crashes.
Awesome. So do you have a blog post on your website about that?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the blockchaintoday.com, everybody. We'll put a link.
And we'll include that in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Jeroen's course, which we've both done, is absolutely fantastic for giving you all of the basics of technical analysis and how to trade. He talks more about Mercury goes retrograde in there and some other really interesting things about the consciousness of the Fibonacci. And for me personally, I did the course over the weekend, and within that first week, just following the pattern trading, I had made a profit. And I think it was beginner's luck, because I did lose a little bit afterwards because I kept jumping into trades. But as I go back to the course and I go back to the patterns and I learn everything in Jeroen's course, it's really given me that foundation to become a profitable trader a lot faster than not doing a course with somebody who knows what they're doing. So the link for that course is below this video.
And we will definitely have to have you back in the fall to talk about that cycle as it becomes more imminent, because that's an awesome scenario for us to be keeping an eye on in terms of our scenario interviews that we're doing on this channel.
It's also funny because now I recognize, like one of the analysts I really like to watch is Alessio Rastani, is a fellow YouTuber. I think he's often right with his analysis, often a contrarian trader also, which I really like. And I just saw him publishing a video as well that he's expecting more downside risk in the regular financial markets, which would align with that cycle as well, So very interesting.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Shemitah cycle a little bit more in depth. When we see a stock market crash, what do we expect to happen in terms of the price of Bitcoin?
Yes, good question.
Well, that is a good question. So I think if we were to see that Shemitah cycle, September, huge crash in the stock market, I'm convinced that it will definitely drag Bitcoin down with it. And it doesn't mean that, let's say, if the stock market would go in a severe bear market, doesn't mean that Bitcoin has to go in a bear market. I think the potential upside for Bitcoin is still huge. But I think the effect, just the negative effect, the panic effect of the stock market will also have a panic effect on the price of Bitcoin. But it can be just shortly lived. Like just a sell-off, which might be recovered in a couple of weeks, but it's going to be a event. It's going definitely to be a event. It's not. I don't see the chance very likely that we are seeing a huge sell-off in the stock market, which will cause a lot of panic, because everybody is just like giving the problem away to the next until the music stops one day, right? So everybody has a little bit in their back in the back of his mind, like, okay, one day we are going to see something can happen. So I think it will trigger a lot of panic emotions in people, which as well will have an effect on the price of Bitcoin in the shorter term time frame. Might not be in the longer term time frame.
Well, we'll definitely have some videos on how to handle those FOMO and losses and FUD, because that's here at Crypto Conscious Crypto rather. Is my dyslexia there. We are definitely all about learning how to manage and control emotions to be trading profitably. So if this is all sounding exciting to you and you love this discussion, we'd love to hear from you. Post your comments and be sure to subscribe and hit the bell and then the notifications of all, so that you get notified when we talk about more juicy things and help you become a profitable trader. And this is such an exciting, fascinating topic for me, because, and Teresa as well, as we're both in the consciousness movement, and just looking at how collective consciousness affects the market, how fear and FOMO affect the market. And I remember the COVID dip, my Bitcoin bounced back faster than my stocks. In the stock market took like 3 months to 6 months because I was invested in Air New Zealand. It took a lot longer to bounce back. Whereas with Bitcoin, it bounced back pretty quickly.
That's true. Yeah.
So Jeroen, are there any scenarios that we could be asking you about and don't know that you think really warrant talking about on this interview?
You mean scenarios concerning the price, or?
Yeah, things that might affect how Bitcoin performs in the market, things like Mercury retrograde, that you're aware of. Do you have other scenarios that you think would be really juicy for us to talk about?
Good question. Good question. Well, I think right now, in general, there's a lot of confidence in the crypto markets, and I think at some point, sooner or later, it's going to end. I think this cycle, a lot of people are involved in mathematics, right? We have a lot of charts and graphs right now, which we did not have 2016, 2017, which has been developed later on, and also in my experience, less people were focused on those. Right now we have like sites like Look Into Bitcoin. We have YouTube channels like Benjamin Cowen focusing on the mathematics behind the markets, which is a interesting turn that we are seeing right now. It looks like people are more aware of the technical fundamental or technical indicators right here in the charts, which could eventually have an effect as well. Because let's say if everybody would be focused on a certain chart, there could be the Pure multiple, the P cycle top indicator. Everybody is focused on that and expecting that once these moving averages cross, we are going to top out. Then it's actually less likely that we are going to replicate something like that. Because when the majority is going to anticipate such an event, then most likely we won't see it happening. So it might have being conscious about the mathematics in the chart right now could actually be a reason why we are going to see a different outcome. And it's weird, but I also think right now we hear a lot of people saying that this cycle is different. This cycle could be a super cycle. And yeah, right now I'm not too sure about that. I think it's definitely possible, but I would still think that is the less likely scenario. I really remember my feeling in 2017 when Bitcoin peaked at $20,000. I truly believe like we don't stop before $100,000. So I didn't took a lot of profits when Bitcoin was at $20,000. I remember taking some profits, buying some stuff like a new laptop and so on. But I didn't took the majority of my Bitcoin holdings out. I have hold it through the whole bear market, which is a very good lesson. And that could actually as well be something, like that through this whole bear market, there have been a lot of hodlers holding their Bitcoin, right? And right now might be taking some profits because they are seeing profits again, right? Which actually could help bring Bitcoin to higher levels in the future, because people are taking profits early on. Bigger players are stepping in. Institutions are buying it up. So yeah, I think I personally think that this cycle is going to be still going to be similar in terms of magnitude than previous cycles. And I think that the chance of a super cycle is less likelier than a cycle with a similar magnitude as the cycles we have seen before.
Let's talk about your exit strategy. Like, how do you develop a strategy for when you start moving your Bitcoin into other things so that when the market does turn around, you're not, hodling to the level of damaging your potential. Damaging isn't the right word, but limiting your potential for your overall growth and wealth.
So what I for sure do is that when Bitcoin is forming a topping pattern and we are breaking certain support, I'm definitely hedging some of my Bitcoin portfolio back in stable coins, or I'm shorting with a leverage. Both of these hedging strategies I'm applying to protect myself for downside risk. Then another strategy what I have, of course, in the bull market is swing trading altcoins. And the exit strategy for really taking profits on Bitcoin is taking more and more profits as much Bitcoin is getting more and more overheated. So the more Bitcoin is getting overheated, when we have a look at certain indicators, the more profits I would take. But there would always be a certain amount of Bitcoin I would never sell, and always would just hold. And we're actually with no intention to sell anytime in the next few years.
And I love that your exit strategy is so similar to ours, that you're creating an intentional community around consciousness and attracting in crypto traders. I know you're doing in Bali something very similar to what we're doing here in Costa Rica and Vistamundo. That's neat because, land is also a diminishing asset on this planet and a great investment. So as Bitcoin peaks out, it's not a bad idea to shift some of your investments from Bitcoin into other scarce assets. And developing an intentional community is a really great way to do that. So I just want to honor and acknowledge that I know that's in your plans to continue with that project. Yeah. Let's talk topping pattern. How do we recognize the topping pattern, Jeroen?
Yeah, that is a good question. We can have a look at the chart. I can share my screen. Let's do that.
You've got screen share there.
Yeah. Let me get rid of the nice Mercury retrograding periods. So, for example, when we have a look at the top right here in 2017, this is actually a typical topping pattern. Bitcoin is in an uptrend. We see an acceleration to the upside, like an acceleration last move. We are seeing a top most of the time that comes along with a bearish divergence, which we are seeing right here as well, which could indicate a potential trend reversal. And afterwards, we are getting we call it a blow off top, so that we are seeing a huge sell-off coming along with extraordinary amounts of volume. So let me bring out the volume right here. There's the volume. Then we can see which chart is this. This is the Bitstamp chart. Okay, so you can see that right here we are seeing increased amounts of volume. I'm sure when we have a look at the Coinbase chart, we will see more volume over there. So right here we can see that we peaked around. Oh wait, let me have a look. So if we zoom out right here, then you can see that the volume in the bull market is building up till a certain peak. Right here we have a record amount of volume, and afterwards it's declining again. Normally when you are seeing the volume hitting a all-time high, or at least a local high right here, then it indicates a top or a bottom. Well, in this case, it definitely indicates the top right here. Then let's go back to the Bitstamp chart for the pattern. I just wanted to show the volume because I think Bitstamp has less volume right here. But yeah, we have a bearish divergence indicating a potential trend reversal. And then one of the most important things, which could be a moment to take profits, is when the price is coming back up to the 61.80% or the 78.60% Fibonacci retracement level. And one of the interesting things right here is normally when you see this bounce and it breaks above a certain level, that can be a bullish sign as well, showing us that we might be continuing this uptrend. I think the majority of the people were expecting Bitcoin right here to continue this uptrend, surpass $20,000 right here. And I think that's always the point. You want to be very carefully, because right here, this bounce still could be a retracement from the drop we have already seen. So that's why I think the 78.60% and the 61.80% are the most important levels. If we break above that, that's fine. But these levels need to flip into support as well. The moment the price is turning above the 61.80% and breaks below it, this would be a moment for me to open a short or hedge Bitcoin into stable coins. Right here. Could also be that the price comes up above the 78.60% and afterwards roll over. Then this would be a moment I would start hedging and start opening short positions because of a potential topping formation. And then we are already quite far in the pattern. And this is a pattern we are seeing quite often with Bitcoin. If we go to the more recent price action, we can have a look at that as well. Let me get rid of the nice drawings.
That's a question there, because I think that was gold, what you just said there. So are you saying that you've got your funds in Bybit or Femex in Bitcoin, and when you see that we're going to be hitting topping out and coming down, you might not short, you might just go over into stable coins, take some of your portfolio, put it into stable coins so you can buy back in when it comes down into the big dip?
Exactly, yeah,
wow.
Exactly. The thing is, when you trade with leverage, you always have you have a liquidation price, you have funding which needs to be paid, right? So both strategies actually carry a risk, because if you have a lot of funds on the exchange, it also carries a risk, right? Exchanges can be hacked, things can happen. But I usually, when I really think we are seeing a top information, potential top formation, I also like to trade on the spot market and take a big chunk of my Bitcoin allocation and exchange it to stable coins to buy back Bitcoin at a later stage. To just simply trade these moves as well. So when we have a look at the topping pattern right here in 2019, we are seeing something similar. So right here, if we have a look at the volume, we can see that the volume also come to a peak right here, afterwards declining. So the volume already indicates, okay, most likely this is a top. We have seen a blow off top, so a huge sell-off. That is where you have to control your emotions a little bit, right? Because price is dumping, but then comes the bounce. And then let's have a look with the Fibonacci retracement tool. This bounce comes up to the 78.60%, above the 61.80%. It doesn't hold this level, right? So this could be a moment, the moment the price breaks back below the 78.60%, could be a moment to take profits or to start shorting, or when we break below the 61.80%. And this is actually quite a safe strategy in my opinion, because even though the price would go below and trade back above it, which is a small opportunity, right? But if that would be the case, you can always take some small losses, but at least you protected yourself against a top in the price, right? So a top in the chart. So I think the risk to reward on such patterns are actually quite nice.
Brilliant. Thank you. That was just a really well thought out analysis of recognizing a topping pattern and how to trade it. It's beautiful.
That is also an awesome strategy. I'm going to be writing that down and sharing that with my crypto ninjas, because you can, in Femex, you can spot trade your Bitcoin that you were using in leverage trading easy enough, right? You just transfer it out of your contract trading account and stick it into spot, and you can just buy USDT. I think in Bybit. We'll have some links for you below on all of those, because that was gold. Like, I'm still pretty stunned. I'm like, wow, how come I hadn't thought of that? Because I have a spot trading account for Bitcoin and a leverage trading account, and I don't mingle them. But sometimes you're waiting days or weeks for the price of Bitcoin to go up and you're not confident to short. So that's bloody brilliant.
Yeah. Your favorite stable coins to store your Bitcoin in during a price correction, or move your Bitcoin to, rather?
So the stable coins that I'm using, stable coin that I'm actually using the most is USDC, Coinbase stable coin. I'm less fan of US dollar Tether. There has been some lawsuits. There is some unclarity in how much Tether actually is backed by certain assets or by US dollars. So therefore, I think USDC is actually quite stable. We had some crazy moments with US dollar Tether in 2016, 2017, where it went up above $1, but also went below $1. Which was actually not so stable actually. So I think the safest way, of course, if I would advise anybody to hedge into stable coins, I think the most safest way would be divided. Maybe use Binance stablecoin, Coinbase stablecoin, some US dollar Tether, divided. But I'm personally, the majority of the times, I'm using USDC.
Do you have certain strategies you prefer to trade on certain platforms? Like, do you have some that you use predominantly on Femex versus some you use predominantly on Bybit? Do you find the different exchanges are better or more preferred depending on what strategy you're trading?
So I'm mostly trading leverage on Femex and Bybit. Sometimes I'm using the spot future on Femex as well, because you have zero fees, which is actually really nice, right, when you're trading spots, especially when you're executing a lot of trades. And next to that, I'm using Binance to swing trade the variety of altcoins. which right now is going to be more often because we are seeing this bull market and liquidity going into altcoins. So I think that is where money is to be made right now.
Hey, thanks so much for your time, Jeroen. That has been really awesome. Great conversation. And for those of you who love what we're talking about here, want to be part of our community, we would love for you to subscribe, hit that bell and get the all notification little link there clicked, and post a comment. For sure, we would love to hear from you. We'll do our best to respond to you. Down below in the description, we're going to post a link to some of the resources that Jeroen was talking about, and most importantly, the blockchaintoday.com. Go check out his course. It is amazing. Both Teresa and I have done it, and it is what's helped us become profitable in a really short space of time. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you too, guys. It was awesome being here on your channel.
You're always so generous with your knowledge, and I know our viewers are really going to appreciate it.